Good morning, everybody. I think we can get started now. A massive welcome. Thank you very much for joining us today. I hope you're keeping well. And if, like me, you're in a part of the country where it's going to be a very hot day, I hope you're keeping cool. My name is Richard Painter, and I'm one of the heads of community-led change for Lloyds Bank Foundation. I'm also joined today by my colleagues, Rachel Marshall, Sarah Cooney, Peter Cunnison, who are all fantastic community impact managers at the foundation. Today, we're going to be sharing with you information on the Good Place to Live New Beginnings Fund, which is currently open for applications. This is your chance to hear about the fund and its criteria and to ask any questions you might have about it. At the end of this webinar, you should have a clear idea of whether this programme aligns with your organisation's mission and strategic focus and whether your organisation is eligible to apply. Before we get into the detail, joining us today are John and David, our British Sign Language interpreters, and Laura and Natalie, our speech captionists. To increase the image of the speakers and interpreters, you'll need to hover in the middle of the screen between the presentation and the speakers, and a bar will appear. You can then click and drag the bar to the left to increase the speakers and interpreters, or to the right to increase the size of the presentation. So that we can make this as easy as possible for them, we'll be sticking to a script for the first half of this session. The session is being recorded and will be uploaded on our YouTube platform afterwards. So that anyone that couldn't join today can watch it back later. You'll also be able to access it through our website. We are really looking forward to hearing from you, and we're committed to providing a safe environment for everyone attending. In terms of ground rules, I want to be clear that we will not tolerate discrimination or harassment in any form. Anyone who does engage in such behaviours will be removed directly from the session. I'm just going to explain how to use some of the technical features on the webinar. If you do want to ask a question, use the Q&A function found on the lower right-hand side of your screen. And if you want to, there's a button you can use which will anonymise your questions. You can submit a question at any time. Our aim is to answer all questions during the webinar, either during the panel discussion or written in the Q&A function directly. Any we don't get to, we will follow up with after the session. To make sure this session is useful for the most people, we won't be answering any questions that are very specific to a single organisation. If after hearing the content of this webinar and reading the guidelines and criteria, you think you meet them, would be eligible and are considering applying, but have a specific question related to your ideas or circumstances, then please do feel free to get in touch with us directly for a chat. We will provide contact information on the slide at the end, and we'll reshare those slides with everyone after the event. Once you've got enough information to decide whether or not to apply, please do feel free to drop off the call. And if you're struggling with the tech, we have some people behind the scenes who are answering questions on that and will be able to help. So that was the technical side of things. I'm just going to give you a quick run through of today's agenda. Rachel, Sarah, Peter, and I will share information with you for around 40 minutes, followed by a 10-minute break. And then we'll have plenty of time after that for your questions, and we can run through till 12 o'clock. I'll start by giving a brief overview of the programme. Rachel is then going to talk through our eligibility criteria, and then Sarah and Peter will discuss the programme criteria and the outcomes you'll need to demonstrate as an organisation. So, getting into the detail now, why this fund? Our new strategy is about everyone in England and Wales being in a good place personally. For us, that means a focus on financial resilience and digital inclusion. in a home that's a good place to live. And for us, that means preventing homelessness and helping non-profit organisations make more homes available to people who need them. And in a community that's a good place to belong to. For us, that means supporting relationships that bridge across divides. Our role in achieving that is to connect and catalyse community-led change. That means building bridges between people and opening doors to what they need. It means supporting new ideas and helping good ones grow. And it means backing local people to lead the way, deciding what their communities need to be in a good place. On the 16th of July, we were delighted to launch the first programme of work under that new strategy. That's the Good Place to Live New Beginnings Fund. This fund is part of our second pillar of work about everyone having a good home to live in. This is the beginning of this work, which is a long-term commitment to back communities to address homelessness. For many people, a safe and secure home is not a reality. Homelessness is increasing, yet the evidence shows that it can often be prevented before it happens. This is especially true for people going through certain key moments of change when the risk of becoming homeless can be significantly higher. These are turning points in people's lives where, with the right support, people start to leave negative experiences and trauma behind them and move forward with their lives. Without that support, identified early and built for the long term, they can fall through the gaps in our overstretched safety net and land in crisis. The New Beginnings Fund will invest £8 million in homelessness prevention, a fund which we've co-designed with community organisations, stakeholders and experts in the field. This fund will work with community organisations that are supporting people at key moments in their lives when the risk of homelessness is highest. Specifically, the fund will support organisations working with people leaving the prison system, young adults leaving care, domestic abuse survivors, and individuals leaving the asylum system on securing leave to remain in the UK. Homelessness has many causes, which means prevention is complex and requires different approaches at different stages. This fund takes the 5 pillars of homelessness prevention as its starting point and focuses on the second of these. By funding organisations dedicated to working directly with people at the turning points I mentioned, we're supporting targeted prevention for people who are at higher risk of homelessness. In doing so, we can help prevent homelessness before it happens and reduce the need for crisis intervention. This does also mean that the programme will not be funding organisations whose main purpose is supporting people who are currently homeless or at the crisis stage of prevention. Through the co-design process, we identified the turning points we will focus on and heard that organisations value the unrestricted funding that the foundation offers and the need for more funding over a longer period. As a result of that, there are 2 levels of grant available. Organisations with an income below £100,000 at the time of application should choose a £100,000 grant, which is made up of 4 annual payments of £25,000. Organisations with an income above £100,000 at the time of application can choose which size grant they want to receive, either a total grant of £100,000 or £200,000. And the £200,000 grants are split into 4 annual payments of £50,000 a year. To determine your income size, we'll use your most relevant, most recent accounts filed on the Charity Commission or Companies House websites. Rachel is going to talk a bit more about this in a moment. This programme will offer grants over 4 years, and that grant will be unrestricted, meaning that there are no strings attached to the funding. You can use the funding how you see fit, be it through using it on salaries, rent, or for charities, just putting it into your reserves for a rainy day. With the help of a learning partner, we will work with you to understand the impact of your work on homelessness prevention and in achieving the Foundation's intended outcomes as well as your own. Alongside this, and this is a really central part of the programme, we will provide development support to every funded organisation. This support is guided by you and your needs. We'll work with you to identify these needs and then use our network of experts and colleagues from Lloyds Banking Group to bring in the right tailored support to meet them. For this fund, we're looking to fund up to 50 organisations, with applications closing at 5 p.m. on Wednesday, the 9th of September this year. We'll communicate the final decision on all of the applications by the 18th of December. As well as this webinar, we will be available to help you with any questions you have right up until the deadline. If you're unsure if your organisation meets the programme criteria, book in for a chat with one of the team. They can answer any questions and advise you whether to apply. We're going to share instructions on how to do so throughout the course of this session, and details about that are also available on our website. Hopefully that gives you an idea of the thinking behind the programme and some of the key things for you to know. I'll now ask Rachel to take us through the eligibility criteria in more detail. Over to you, Rachel.
Thanks, Richard. Hello, everyone. Borida. I'm Rachel, one of the Community Impact Managers here at Lloyds Bank Foundation. I'm here this morning to guide you through the eligibility criteria and initial assessment of your application. Last year, we received many more applications than the funding available. As this is a brand new programme, we don't have the statistics yet for it. However, across all our programmes in 2025, we received 985 applications and awarded 205 grants. So I want to emphasise that many organisations applied to us even though they weren't eligible. We aim to make 40 to 50 grants this year, so it's really important to read our full criteria properly. If you're not sure if you are eligible, you can book a call with us to check, and I'll tell you more about how to do that later. We aim to make the application process as accessible as possible and to save you time in applying if your organisation does not currently meet our criteria. Here are some tips to help ensure your eligibility before starting your application. Please visit the funding page on our website, select New Beginnings Programme, and scroll down to find our guidance and the link to our eligibility quiz. The quiz takes a few minutes and is a quick and easy way to check your eligibility before starting the application process. If the quiz indicates that you are eligible, you will also find an example application form to help you draft your responses before submitting your application. Also, you can scroll further down and you will find a few drop-down tabs where you can read our general criteria, you can also review how your charity aligns with the programme's aims and priorities, and you can find also our frequently asked questions in this section too. Once you've done the quiz and read through the guidance and used the example application form if you want to, you can then click Apply Now on our website. If you need to discuss your application before submitting it, you can book a call with one of our funding and compliance officers. We're here to help you assess your eligibility and answer any questions you might have. After you submit your application, one of our team will conduct an initial assessment. If your organisation seems to be a good fit for our programme, we'll arrange a call to discuss your work in more detail, learn about how your organisation operates and understands your strengths and development priorities. And before I share more details about the eligibility criteria, I just also want to flag the use of artificial intelligence, also known as AI. We know organisations use AI to help write their grant applications. We understand the cost and time pressures that charities are under and that the use of AI in easing this. However, we often see an over-reliance on AI for grant applications, and in many cases, using AI is not actually to the applicant's advantage in terms of success. We read every single application gladly that we receive, and we do not use AI at all in any part of our decision making. It's often obvious to us when AI has been over-relied on, as these applications are very generic, don't give a clear voice of the organisation, and don't showcase the organisation's unique strengths and services. Therefore, if you are intending to use AI to help you write your application, please do look at our website as it provides some more guidance on this. Okay, now let's discuss the eligibility criteria. We fund registered charities and charitable incorporated organisations registered with the Charity Commission. We ask for your charity registration number at the start of your application, and we use this to review several aspects of your Charity Commission record, including your accounts, your history, and that you have at least 3 unrelated board members. We also fund some types of community interest company, or CIC, who match our specific eligibility criteria. For instance, we only fund CICs which are limited by guarantee or limited by shares under Schedule 2, with a named asset lock in place. Full details are in our eligibility guidance on our website, which accompanies the programme. If you're not sure if you meet these specific CIC criteria, please do check your memorandum and articles of association from when you incorporated as a company. You can find that on the Companies House website. We'll check what type of CIC you are, your size, whether you have a named asset lock in place, and who the named organisation is who holds the balance of power, and if directors are related or not. Often this is where applications are declined and where we see lots of ineligible applications. We'll check you meet our criteria by reviewing your memorandum and articles of association, checking your annual report CIC 34, and your entries on the Companies House website. Alongside this, we'll ask you to submit your profit and loss account for the last financial year. There are also many eligibility criteria that apply to both charities and community interest companies. So, your organisation must be based and operating in England, Wales, and/or the Isle of Man, with at least a 12-month track record of providing support. Your published accounts must show that your total income is between £25,000 and £2 million. You must have a bank account in the name of your organisation with unrelated signatories. If your application is successful, the grant will be paid into this account, and we will request these details at a later stage. At least 3 trustees or directors of your organisation must not be related nor live at the same address. Your organisation must have an up-to-date safeguarding policy, which is embedded and understood across your organisation. We expect that all your staff will be appropriately trained and that your designated safeguarding officer will have level 3 training or equivalent. When you speak to one of our team, we will ask you about this. We will also require you to hold public liability insurance. Additionally, we will check to see if you are an independent organisation. This will involve looking at any formal associations you have with other organisations, any parent bodies or group structures, and we will check that your trustees and directors have full control over your organisation's work and that any conflicts of interest or loyalties are managed. We would want to see a policy in place that reflects and addresses this. If there are related parties across the senior leadership in your organisation, we'll explore this further with you. Religious activities should not be part of the services delivered unless your organisation has been established to support individuals specifically of that faith. If you provide therapy or counselling as part of your services, the individuals providing the therapy or counselling must hold registration with one of the Professional Standards Authority accredited registers for counselling and psychotherapy. Your charity must also have a process in place for checking their registration on a regular basis. If you provide immigration advice, which is a regulated activity, we will ask about Immigration Advice Authority registration. Lastly, if you hold a grant with us currently, the end date must be before the 9th of September 2027. If you require accessibility support to help you apply for this programme, we can provide up to £500 to help towards this. This could cover BSL interpreters, language translation, scribes, or dyslexia support, for instance, if you need it, but we do not fund bid writers. If you would like to access this support, or if you require our guidance in an easy read format, please contact us. Our inquiry email address will be added to the chat now to enable you to do this. Our guidance is also available in Welsh on our website. If you believe you do meet our eligibility criteria, we're looking forward to getting to know more about your organisation and supporting you the best way we can. Hopefully this has all made sense, but if you have further questions, please use the Q&A button as Richard described. Now my colleague Sarah will go through what we mean when we talk about the programme criteria.
Thank you, Rachel, and good morning, everyone. My name is Sarah, and like Rachel, I'm one of the Foundation's Community Impact Managers. There are 14 Community Impact Managers at the Foundation working with organisations across England and Wales. Our role includes assessing your applications alongside our finance and compliance officers, and then working with successful applicants throughout the life of your grant, supporting you to build strong and resilient organisations. Rachel has talked about the criteria that makes your organisation eligible for this programme. So now I'm going to talk about the criteria that makes your organisation and its work a fit for the programme. The New Beginnings Fund is focused on homelessness prevention. There is a wide range of research and evidence showing that there are key turning points in people's lives when the risk or likelihood of future homelessness increases significantly. These moments of change create uncertainty and instability, particularly when people do not have the right support around them to help them to navigate through to a good way forward. This programme is focused on 4 of those key turning points. In this first round of the New Beginnings Fund, we want to work with organisations whose main purpose is to work with people who are going through one of these 4 turning points, those being people leaving prison or young offender institutions, young people leaving care aged up to 25, people leaving relationships where they are experiencing domestic abuse, and people leaving the asylum system on securing the right to remain in the UK. We will determine if this is the main purpose of your organisation from your application, your website and social media, the information about your organisation on the Charity Commission or Companies House registers, and that includes your annual reports and accounts and your governing documents. So we want to work with organisations whose primary purpose and activity is to directly support people, through one of these 4 turning points, and who are working with people to help them reduce the risk of future homelessness, overcome barriers, and to move forward with greater stability, confidence, and opportunity to build the future they want. Where the support, activities, or services you deliver are targeted, person-centred, and supporting people over the longer term. Who understand the people with whom you work, their strengths and challenges, and how the support you provide reduces that risk of homelessness. Organisations who work alongside and with other organisations, services and partnerships to ensure people can access the support they need before reaching crisis point, including access to safe, suitable housing. And that you recognise the importance of equity, diversity and inclusion, and take action to address inequities and embed these principles throughout your organisation and your work. So I'd like to give 2 examples of organisations that could meet our programme criteria. First is a local charity whose team of caseworkers and volunteer mentors works with young people before they leave care to support them to be ready for that move to independent living, which then continues to support them to build their independent living skills, including developing their budgeting skills, their ability to manage and sustain their accommodation, access education, training and employment opportunities, as well as connecting into local health and other support services, while also building their social networks and helping them to become involved in their communities. And that would be an example, for example, of a charity supporting care leavers. Another example would be a CIC supporting people leaving prison, with a particular focus on working with people from Black and minoritized communities. It initially makes contact and starts to build relationships with individuals while they're serving their sentences to help them to prepare for release, to address issues that might impact on their release, and to have the right support structures in place outside. This may also involve working with the prison service, probation, and other services working within the prison. This is then followed by providing through the gate support, meeting individuals at the point of their release, and accompanying them to the different services they need to register with, advocating on their behalf, and accompanying them to their accommodation. And then following that through the gate support, continuing to provide post-release support to help people to access services and opportunities, engage with social and learning activities, and to re-establish themselves and reintegrate into the community. These are both examples of organisations which are supporting people through two of the turning points of those that we're focusing on and into their new beginnings. I will now hand over to my colleague, Peter Cunnison.
Thanks, Sarah. My name's Peter. I'm another of the Community Impact Managers here at the Foundation. Continuing Sarah's thread of what we look for in organisations, we're now going to shift our focus to lived experience, outcomes and impact, before going on to talk about your organisational development goals, priorities and how we can support you to achieve them. We prioritise organisations that involve people with lived experience in the way they are run. Stronger applications will reflect in the involvement of people with lived experience at different levels of your organisation and in different ways, such as governance, leadership and decision-making, staff, volunteers and advisors, co-designing and the development of your services, consultations and influencing work with key stakeholders, ongoing development of your activities through feedback and learning. The key is to reflect how people that you seek to support are also empowered and have a voice within your work, shaping the decisions that affect them. Now let's talk about outcomes and impact. We want to work with organisations which understand and can demonstrate the difference their work makes and how this aligns with the Foundation's outcomes. So we will ask you to identify up to 3 of the following Foundation outcomes that most strongly describe your work. Improving people's well-being, supporting people to have greater agency, helping people feel more in control of their lives, building trusted relationships and connections, creating opportunities such as employment, skills development, or accessing services, helping people and communities become more resilient, to be able to respond to the challenges and adapt to change. We will ask you to tell us what your own outcomes are and how you capture, measure, and evaluate these, and also how this learning helps you to develop your work. We expect you to have some processes and tools in place to help you capture this information and to be able to report on your outcomes. However, should your existing approach to capturing, measuring, or evaluating the impact of your work need updating or strengthening, we can also provide development support during the lifetime of your grant. Just let us know. As an organisation that considers itself to be more than a funder, we look positively on organisations that identify development areas so that we can work with them to access development support. And that leads me on nicely to your organization's development goals and priorities. We also want to understand your organization's development goals and how you've identified these. So in your application, we will ask you to choose up to 3 development priorities for your organization. This is because, as I mentioned briefly earlier, alongside and in addition to your funding, the organizations we partner with have access to our organizational development support throughout the life of their relationship with us. We partner with organizations to help them become stronger, more resilient, and better equipped to achieve their goals beyond the life of our funding. This means we want to work with organizations which understand their development goals and priorities, know what they want to do to achieve them, and where our support can help them to do this. Our development support is shaped around what matters most to you and can range from supporting you to develop your strategic planning, communications and fundraising capacity, strengthening your governance, improving systems and processes, which can include measuring impact, develop your staff, and support your leadership, just to name a few areas. We will ask you your priority development needs, how you identified them, and why addressing them is important for your organization and the people you support. And if your application is successful, this is the start of our relationship and support, which will continue throughout your grant. Rachel described earlier the application and the assessment process. We know that it is likely that we will receive a high number of applications to this fund from eligible organizations, and that demand will exceed the 8 million that we have to give as grants in this round of the New Beginnings Fund. In deciding on which eligible applications are taken forward and supported, in addition to eligibility and strength of fit with the program objectives, plus including their focus on the 4 turning points, we will be considering a range of factors to decide the final number of applications supported, such as geography, urban versus rural, and turning points, for example, but all with the aim of achieving a balanced mix of grants. Now, I will hand you back to Richard.
Thanks, Peter, and the panel. Loads of information packed in there. If there's anything you've missed or you want to go back to, then this recording will be uploaded to our website within the next day or two. And just to recap those key dates, applications close at 5 p.m. on Wednesday, the 9th of September this year. Shortlisting and assessments will take place between October and November, and final decisions will be made by the 18th of December. We can see questions are coming in through the chat, which is brilliant. If you've got more questions, then please do submit them now. While we have a quick look at those questions, we're just going to take a brief 10-minute break. So feel free to add any more during that period. Grab a quick cuppa and see us back here at 11:15. Hello to Rachel, Sarah, and Peter. Are you all there? And can you hear me? Fabulous. Good stuff. Great. Well, we've had loads of questions coming in, and our team at the back end are working tirelessly to respond to those that they can. Some of those have been picked out because they're might be relevant to a wider range of organizations, and those are the ones that we are going to discuss. We have, as I say, we've got Rachel, Sarah, and Peter here, as well as myself. We will pick up some of these questions. I'm going to direct them to one or other of you, but that doesn't mean that someone else can't chip in if you've got something else to add, if you violently disagree, or if you think there's an extra point that needs to be covered there. So we'll keep it conversational. I will have my head turning to the left a little bit because that's where I can see the questions that are coming in. So please don't be distracted by that. So let's kick off. I'm gonna start with one for you, Sarah, if that's all right, which is, could you clarify what constitutes a crisis point in the context of this fund? The guidance states that funding is intended to prevent homelessness before it reaches a crisis point for the individual, so it'd be helpful to understand how this threshold is designed. Do you want to kick us off with that one, and then we can come in if needs be?
I will do my best, Richard. Thank you. We would see the crisis point being as people are at the point of becoming homeless or who are already homeless. If you look at think back to that slide about the pillars of prevention, we're looking to fund organizations where your work contributes to homelessness prevention by recognizing the specific risks people face at critical life moments and by providing early tailored support before those challenges escalate into crisis and homelessness.
Any other thoughts on that one? Yeah, just go on, Peter. Do come in.
No, I was saying that I think Sarah covered that well. I think the key thing is it's before the crisis happens. That's the main thing. So it's putting in place that support before an organisation is at a point, an individual is at a point where they would not be able to be housed, would be without a home. That's the focus of, and I think it's a point we're stressing throughout this. It's before that, because I know there'll be lots of people on this organisation who might think this is about addressing the homelessness issue, and it's about the organisation who specialise in those turning points before people get to a crisis where they get there.
For me, it's about anticipating that there could be a crisis in future, so working with people at an early enough stage to prevent that. So it's not at the point of where they've had an eviction notice or they're actively homeless, sofa surfing or anything like that. So it is working at a much earlier stage and anticipating that group may become homeless in future and doing that hard work early on. So.
Yeah, so completely right. It's upstream prevention is what we call it, which is a bit jargony, I know, in terms of the upstream bit, but it's about the point at which, because there's crisis and there's crisis prevention, so it's before the crisis prevention bit kicks in as well. So what we're seeking to do is to ensure that all of those pressures that come onto statutory services and other parts of the system, that it's addressed before then. So what we haven't done is define a specific, say this is exactly what we mean by crisis, but because there are definitions that we could use in terms of like the 56 days of prior to someone being at risk of being homeless, which is what local authorities have to use, but we haven't overly specified that, but we are meaning before all of those sort of services have to get involved in order to prevent the crisis, to prevent homelessness at a crisis point. So in working with those organisations that are focused, as the guy's saying, on one of the turning points, we're looking to address those issues before they become serious. Linked to that, I think, is one that is for me, which is around, which I will take, which is around, can you define homelessness, i.e. does this include family homelessness, sofa surfing, staying with relatives and in B&B accommodation? The short answer to that is yes, it does include those things. So we're not talking about rough sleeping specifically. We're talking about a broader definition of homelessness, which is, and the focus of the program is around work that contributes to homelessness prevention, and that would include people becoming temporarily housed or being in a situation where they don't have a kind of long-term legal right to stay within a home, or they can't access their accommodation, or all of that stuff. So it's a wider definition than rough sleeping for sure. Anything to add to that? Anything I've missed?
No, don't think so.
No, that's good.
Peter, could you clarify the eligibility requirements regarding target groups? How about organisations that support multiple groups?
Yeah, I mean, this is something that we expect to get a lot of. So the key thing to remember here is, you might remember in the presentation we talked about primary purpose. So there are the 4 turning points: people who are leaving prison or young offenders institutions, young people aged up to 25 who are leaving or have left care to live independently, people leaving an abusive relationship and people leaving the asylum system on securing leave to remain, including unaccompanied asylum-seeking children. So the 4 turning points, but we can tell as an organization where an organization has a primary purpose. There are lots of organizations that will be, and we've often worked with organizations that have a very holistic approach to supporting the challenges that people have. It is a strong way, and it prevents sending people from pillar to post. But there are organizations that will have a focus on supporting one of those issues. If you support more than one, that's great, but we will look to see that the majority of your resources as an organization, that's income, that's staff, are all dedicated to supporting people and the services that are at that turning point. So yeah, we'll look on your website, we'll look on your accounts, but you need to look. It could even be the name of an organization, sometimes an indication, but we want to support those organizations that have a clear focus and that deploy the majority of their time resources towards addressing one or more, but primarily one of those turning points. That's how I'd respond to it. I don't know if anyone in the team wants to enhance that further.
I'm just going to bring Rachel in because I think there's a linked question to that, which I think builds on your answer there, Peter, which is, can I please check exactly what you mean by work that is targeted?
Yeah, so for me, it's obviously choosing one of those defined turning points that Peter's just gone through again, and showing to us that your work with those people is deliberate and intentional. You've got to understand the needs of those people by working with them for at least 12 months, and you work with them over a long time. So, as part of your work, we'd expect to see a mixture of, services that maybe address people's specific and immediate needs. Maybe that's immigration advice or welfare support or helping them to access health services, for instance. But over that longer term, you're providing a broader range of services that helps build that trust and connection over a longer time. But that you've chosen one of those target groups, and you really understand their needs so that the services that you're providing are deliberately addressing their support needs. And as Peter says, if you're working generally across 2 or 3 or all 4 of those organizations, you're really going to struggle to show to us that your work is targeted and deliberately working with those people rather than just by chance. It's just by chance that they are the makeup of your community. What we're looking to see is that you're intentionally aiming to support people who come from one of these turning point areas.
Yeah, and just to add, that's brilliant, thank you. And just to add to that, I think that we really fully recognise intersectionality and the fact that a number of these turning points are interconnected, and you will likely have people that you're working with who have experienced more than one of them. And we recognise that, and that's all part of that person-centred holistic support. But we would expect the sort of focus and the aims of your work to be around addressing one of those particular turning points. So it may be that you're working within the criminal justice system, or within the young carers system, and that is the sort of focus of your work, and we can clearly see that. It may be that the people that you're working with, as well as experiencing that, experience other things, but we'd want to see that as the kind of as the clear focus of your work. Great. I'm gonna Sarah, you've not had one for a little while, so I'm gonna throw to you. Sarah, would this fund consider work with people who are homeless or at risk of homelessness while trying to regularize their immigration status? They may not yet have secured leave to remain, but are trying to and are currently homeless.
Okay. I think this slightly takes us back to the point about this being focusing around homelessness prevention, rather than crisis point. If your work is supporting people who are in the asylum in the asylum seeking process and application, and supporting them through that period when they do receive leave to remain and beyond it. Appreciating that the key turning point there is often that when people receive their refugee status and leave to remain, they have 42. There is a 42-day move-on point from where they're receiving, for example, asylum seeker support, and that is quite a critical time for people, and there's a lot of things they need to do to be able to move forward. So, if I would say whoever asked this question, it might be worth having a conversation with us about booking in for a conversation with us. We wouldn't be ruling it out, but we would be looking to see how your support is focused on supporting people over that turning point of when they receive their status and leave to remain and beyond.
Fabulous. Thank you. Peter, one for you. It's going back to our discussion about the targeted nature of work, I think, which is what percentage of beneficiaries does an organisation need to have in one of the target groups to qualify as the main purpose?
So it's very hard to quantify this. I mean, I can say 50%, 51%. Percentages is probably not the most helpful, and it really is about a discussion around just where do you apply the majority of all the resource you have, people and finance, really, and it's a judgment call. So this is another one where if you're unsure, it's probably better to have that discussion. In most cases with us, I think in most cases it should be obvious to you. I think you'll know. You'll know if you're a fit. If you're not sure, I wouldn't say to apply. I'd say book in a call with us and have a chat, because we will scour all the resources that are available about your organisations. If you submit the application afterwards, we'll look at your accounts. I've said we'll look at your website. What are you commenting on the most? What of people that you tend to support, the funding that you get, what is it mainly in support of, what are you promoting and talking about mainly on your social media platforms? So it will be a judgment, but we'll need you to lead on that because you do have to pick one of them. And we need to determine whether it's the majority. And so it is the organizations that have historically said, we support all, we are open to all. They're the ones that will struggle, I would say, to answer this question. But it is a judgment call, and we will have to form a judgment. And that will be led by which one of those you pick. So rather than just saying, oh, you could meet, agreeing with you and say, oh, you meet all four of them. If you pick people in the asylum system, that's where we'll focus on. That's how we'll try and arrive at our judgment decision. That's how I'd call it, Richard. I don't know about my esteemed colleagues, but that's how I would call it.
I would just add, for us, it's not just about the percentage of beneficiaries or the number of beneficiaries. So, we're less interested in the volume of people that you're supporting. It's more about the intensity of that support that you're providing to people. And if that client group have, their needs are so complex and so integral to your service that you're spending the majority of your time and resource supporting that group, then you'll be able to demonstrate to us that that is targeted, in-depth support. So I think Peter's right. Just book in a call with us and have a chat, and we can talk about your particular circumstances when.
Yeah, and I think a rule of thumb is that if your work is targeted around the turning point, then that's great, and this is for you. If your work is, say, around homelessness generally, and you have a project that's focused around one of these target groups, or as Peter was saying, you have clients who would fit within this, then you'll have a harder task, I think, in explaining how the main purpose of your work is around that turning point. Okay, I'm going to pick one up now, which is this. As the funding is unrestricted, what will you be judging applications on? For example, will organisations with evidence of excelling outcomes be judged higher than an organisation that is developing its evaluation? Is there a scoring matrix for how applications will be judged that can be shared. So it is unrestricted funding, and as a result, it will be judged against the criteria that is in the program guidance. So within the guidance document that accompanies the application form, it breaks down exactly what we're looking for within the applications. And in terms of things like the level of evidence and the kind of maturity, I suppose, of someone's impact measurement and things like that, we will take a proportionate approach to that. So there's a wide range of organisations that can apply, from £25,000 up to 2 million in terms of annual income, and we take that into consideration and are quite proportionate in terms of what is reasonable for organisations of different sizes. We're also, as Peter was talking about in the presentation, really interested in what people's development needs are. So I'd really encourage you in the applications to be quite honest about those. So if you feel like impact measurement and is something that is a really pressing need for you as an organisation, I think it's really helpful to outline that in the form, because we are interested in supporting organisations to develop, as well as supporting those that already have everything in place. Anything from the panel on that?
I think I would come in and just sort of reiterate what you said. We're part of what we're offering, and an integral part of what we offer is that access to different kinds of development support. We don't expect organizations applying to us to be perfect, but we do expect you to have a good understanding of what your development priorities and needs would be, so that, you know, over the life of our relationship with you, we'll be working with you to provide support where you want it, around those organizational development areas. So as Richard said, I know it's hard to do, and it's sort of counterintuitive when you're applying to someone, but actually we do want to know what your development ambitions are, and we want to help you to realize them.
Thank you.
Can I just quickly
come
add?
in, Peter.
It almost feels like they're kind of unrelated. So, you know, it's unrestricted funding, but we sort of front load the process. So because we want to then just give you the funding to invest in your organization just to get on with the work. So the focus needn't be on the fact that it's unrestricted at this stage. It is about, and there is a matrix, but the matrix is the program criteria. So it is about equity, diversity, and inclusion. It is about lived experience. It is about the turning points. And then, as we mentioned in the application, we will have to look at having a balanced portfolio. So focus on the program criteria. Once you get through the eligibility, whether you're a charity or a CIC, CIO, then the focus is majority of your work, lived experience involvement, really boost that and show how people are involved in decision making. How are you open and accessible to diverse people, and you're inclusive in your approach? Those are things to focus on. And then the sweet pill at the end is it's unrestricted. You can go and use that funding how you see fit.
Brilliant, thank you. We've still got plenty of questions to get through here, so I would encourage all participants on the call, if you've got any questions, to submit them now. We've got 25 minutes left, so any that we don't get to, we will follow up with in our FAQs and make sure that we respond to each and every one of those. Rachel, will women who have no recourse to public funds and fleeing domestic abuse and honour-based abuse be supported through this fund?
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, we could support that if you fit within the turning point around leaving an abusive relationship, for instance. So the same as we've already sort of said, we'll look to see that your work is the main focus of your work, and that it's targeted support to the women who've experienced that abuse. We'll look to see that it's not just one project that you're running, that it is actually, you know, the main focus of your work. So everything that we've covered so far, just about, telling us about your services and about the types of support that you're providing and how you fit with that turning point will be really important when you're submitting your application to us. And then we'll use your application form and all the other information that we can see on your organisation to really get a good feel for how your organisation works and to check that you do fit well with that turning point area. So yeah, there's potential for that. Definitely come and tell us. And if you're not sure, then just book a call with us as well, and you can chat to one of the team in advance of applying.
Yeah, thank you. And I think a crucial part of that question was that it was about fleeing domestic abuse. And we have had, and I can see some of the questions in the Q&A, had some questions about exactly what we mean by leaving an abusive relationship. And that's something that we will take away because there have been a few questions on that. And we'll put something on the FAQs to give a really clear outline about exactly what we're talking about when we mean leaving an abusive relationship. Brilliant, thank you. Sarah, you mentioned that this fund is focused on prevention rather than crisis support. Is it okay for an organisation to do both prevention and crisis support?
It is, but we'd be looking to see that the primary focus of the organisation would be working with people prior to crisis. So again, going back to that point around homelessness prevention, so working with people at one of those 4 turning points, and we'd expect to see that would be the primary focus of what you do. It may well be that you're also delivering work that is supporting people who are becoming homeless or who are homeless, but we'd look to see where the majority of your work is focused and targeted.
Yeah, completely agree with that. And I think what something that we really do want to see in the applications is understanding where your connections lie and where your potential, referral routes are and things like that. So it may be that your organisation provides some temporary housing or provides some crisis support yourselves, or if not, that you've got really clear links and partnerships with people who do, because we recognise that whilst this is about prevention is not possible to prevent homelessness in all circumstances. So we'd want to see that you have those connections and know where the sort of referral routes and things lie for you, or potentially that's something that you provide some of yourself. But as Sarah says, we'd want to see a main sort of focus on that upstream prevention. So one here that I'll take, which is we've had a few questions about location. Are we looking for organisations that demonstrate reach and impact across local or a wider region? What about organisations that deliver UK-wide work? The Lloyds Bank Foundation has a focus on supporting small and local organisations. So we would expect the work to have a local context. It's not about supporting national work. However, what I would say is that if you feel like your circumstances are more complex than that, so you really bring in sort of local understanding and have a place and understanding of your position within the local system, and you want to talk to us more about that, then please do book in a call with us and talk to us about your specific circumstances. But on the whole, we're looking to support local organisations. We haven't provided a definition about what we mean by local versus regional, but we would expect your organisation to be working within a local or regional area that you're able to define and explain within that how you work in partnership with other organisations within the locality, and what your understanding of kind of local need of the people that you're working with is.
Can I just jump in and add
Yeah,
something here? Just
sure.
obviously in the context of Wales, which is one of the areas that we fund. So you may be doing national work that's across the whole of
Mhm.
Wales, and that's fine. So we want the area where you're based and where you're delivering services to make sense for you. So yeah, in that context, then national could mean across the whole of Wales. And as I said earlier in the scripted part of the webinar, your work really will need to be delivered in the main either in England, Wales, or the Isle of Man. So if you're based in other parts of the UK and delivering services there, then you would really struggle to demonstrate that. We'd want to come and ask some questions about where your services are being delivered. So you might want to book a call with us just to have a chat with that before you apply.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Just come
Yep.
in there as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, do.
I think it's also thinking about what we've said we're looking for in terms of the kind of support and services, because we're talking about supporting people over the longer term, providing person-centered, in-depth support. And that's holistic, and then that's holistic and looking at the whole needs and strengths of that person. As a national organization, is that the kind of support you're providing? Or because that's, so it's thinking not just about the turning point that you're focused on, but the nature of the support and services that you're surrounding those individuals with as well.
Oh, I've got to jump in on this one as well. Sorry, Richard.
Yeah, no, please do.
Yeah, I mean, this is actually one where you could consider the unrestricted nature might be a factor here, because if you've got a national organization that has got bodies right across the country, this is unrestricted funding. Once it's in, this could be funding. We don't want to restrict and have an agreement saying, okay, you've applied for, Dudley. I'm saying Dudley because I'm from the West Midlands, but you've applied for Dudley, but you're based in London. We aren't going to put any terms on the ground to say this money must go to Dudley. So there are questions that I think we would be thinking, such as, well, who else is in that area? Why should it be you? Are you the only organization in the country that has got this specific expertise in this area? And whilst others locally might not be able to apply, those are sort of conversations that you'd need to be able to answer as to why you, because there would be some implications of giving an unrestricted grant to a national organisation because they have a regional base in an area. We'd need to discuss why. Why would you need to be the best place to do this? But just thought I'd throw that in.
Thank you very much. Rachel, one for you. Is match funding a strength? 4 years is a great amount of time, but would be challenging to demonstrate match funding for this length of time.
Well, the good news is you don't have to demonstrate any match funding at all. So it's a completely unrestricted grant, and you don't need to show any match at any point through the 4 years of the grant. What you might end up doing, in fact, is potentially using our grant as match for something else. So if you're going for any public funds, for instance, that do require a match, and you need to provide match funding for that, then just so you're aware, our funding comes from a donation we get from Lloyds Banking Group, our corporate partner. It's not publicly funded, so you can use our funding as match if you need to in future as well. But the good news is you don't require match to apply to us.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. I'm going to take one here, which is a fairly fundamental question about the fund, which is, can you explain why the foundation has decided to focus on prevention and, oh, it's just disappeared, and why you have selected these particular turning points for investment now, what difference you want to see in society as a result. So hopefully I covered a bit of this in the presentation at the beginning. We're focusing on prevention because the overall vision for the Lloyds Bank Foundation strategy is about everyone in England and Wales being in a good place, and we all know and we can see the extent to which homelessness is increasing, the extent to which so many people are not in a good place. They're certainly not in a good place to live. And there is a lot of pressure on services to deliver that sort of homelessness crisis provision. We, as a funder, are in a fairly privileged position, which is that we are able to support in a part of the system that is relatively underfunded, which is around that prevention work. So there is evidence that sort of demonstrates that prevention is one of the areas within homelessness where there is less funding that has been invested, and is a clear area where a funder like the foundation is able to provide funding and support at that upstream level, with the hope and expectation that what can happen as a result of that is that the level of crisis within rough sleeping and within homelessness more widely is reduced. So the only way to sort of really, in the long term, address that crisis situation is in supporting the prevention and addressing these issues where they arise. We decided on this approach and on the turning points themselves through the co-design that we did, through talking to experts and stakeholders within the field. We had a series of co-design workshops that we ran back in April with community organisations, all of which pointed us towards these particular turning points, of which there are others, and I'm not going to deny there are many more causes of homelessness, but we, through that process, identified these as places where there's really strong evidence that people are at a really high risk of potential homelessness. And also from the foundation's perspective, these are areas that the foundation has got experience into. So we've got a new strategy, but our new strategy is very much building on the foundations that we have. And we know, having worked in these spaces, how many fantastic organisations there are that do work that's specifically targeted around these really significant changes in people's lives, and that they support people before the change and afterwards, and help support them throughout that entire process. So that is why we've chosen to focus on those. And the difference we want to see in society is around a long-term impact on homelessness itself, and a reduction in homelessness, so that in addressing it early on, it ceases to become an issue and we see less people presenting in crisis. Anything to add to that from the panel?
Just to reiterate what we said earlier as well, that this is the first programme under our new strategy, under our pillar of support around people in England and Wales having a good place to live. So I'm sure one of the team can pop the link in the chat where you can register for information about future programmes that we launch as well. So this New Beginnings Fund won't be the only fund that we have that's around housing and homelessness issues, and in future we will be developing other programmes that will target other parts of the issue and help us address that wider issue in society as well. So please look
really
out.
good point. Yeah, really good point. We're here for the long haul. We'll be working in this space for at least the next 9 years. So this is very much a starting point for us. Sarah, we've got a couple more questions, and then I think I'm going to begin to wrap up after that, because there are less coming in now. Sarah, what evidence will you look for to understand that the people we support would reach a crisis point and be at risk of homelessness without support? It's quite a tricky question. Happy to take that one as a as a group if you want.
I'll start, and please do come in. We've identified these particular turning points because we know, and the evidence and research strongly supports the sort of knowing that people who go through these particular turning points are at much higher risk of becoming homeless in the future. So we're not, so where the kinds of outcomes that we're looking for is around the outcomes that Peter touched on. We would like to see, I think, that that you have links into other organizations as well who may be more focused around housing, that you know where your referrals are, but we're not necessarily expecting you to be able to demonstrate, because let's be honest, prevention is really hard to demonstrate, that your specific support has resulted in someone not becoming homeless in the future. It's that we know that by providing support at these key turning points, that will reduce that risk.
And it's more about the type of support, and that's why we sort of are asking for that support to be long-term and in-depth and to be really targeted at people's needs, because you can only really do that prevention work if the people you're working with trust you and come back to you to access a variety of services, both when they have got immediate needs and then over the longer term when they're in recovery or when they're trying to move on in their lives. So you don't have to prove to us that work leads to homelessness prevention, because there's literature and data already out there that we've used to design this programme. But what we want to see is the specific outcomes that you are capturing for your work. So do tell us about those.
Yeah, and thanks. That's great. And on the application form itself, there is space for you to sort of make this case. And as Sarah and Rachel say, we understand that kind of hard evidence around homelessness prevention is really difficult. And organisations, as I said earlier, are at different sizes and have different levels of kind of infrastructure to collect this sort of data. We would want to be able to see that you've got quite a compelling case and a rationale for saying this is how what we do prevents homelessness, and where you have got evidence and support for that, be through kind of local evidence or outcomes that you collect through your work, that points towards that, then that will make your case stronger. So we want to see a compelling kind of argument and case as to why the work that you do supports that homelessness prevention. Okay, 5 minutes left and we are nearing the end. Thank you very much, guys, for your support in answering these so far. I've got one last one which I'll pick up, which I think is relatively straightforward, which is, will you be allocating the £8 million equally across the 4 turning points? We don't have a kind of a block or a kind of designated amount for each turning point. We are going to be looking, though, as Peter was sort of reflecting in the presentation, we will look at the balance of the portfolio, and that will be across a range of factors. So geography, ensuring that there's kind of like a reasonable spread of our funding, organisation size, and then also across the turning points to see that it's sort of proportionate to the number of applications we get and the size of the relevant sectors and things like that. So there isn't a kind of behind the scenes formula that's been calculated for that, but we will be looking for kind of a balance across the portfolio, and that will be one of the things that comes into decision making conversations for sure. Okay. I think we're going to start to wrap up now. And I think if I could just ask each of you as we close, if there's anything that you think that we should have said today that we haven't, but also if you could give a top tip, one thing, one or maximum 2, looking at you, Peter, maximum 2 things that you would advise potential applicants before completing their application for the New Beginnings Fund, what would it be? What would be that top tip? I'm going to start with Sarah.
I'm going to say something that may seem terribly obvious, and we have said it, but please do read the guidance in full. and also the FAQs, the frequently asked questions, which we will be updating as inquiries come in as well, before you do the eligibility criteria quiz and begin completing an application. The guidance, as we've talked about, that sets out what our criteria is and what we'll be looking for in applications and organisations.
Brilliant, thank you. Rachel?
For me, it's just take a breather, take a bit of time. The deadline's not till the 9th of September. So as we've said, after today, we've had loads of questions. We'll update our Q&A. We'll also upload a recording of this webinar if you need to watch it again. So there's no advantage to applying today compared to on the, at the beginning of September. So just take your time and work through. And if you need to book a call with us, then the link's in the chat. So.
Fab. Peter?
I would say do not fall into the trap of just thinking this is homelessness. The premise is that this is preventing the risk of becoming homeless. So consider the turning points. Imagine that they are a pair of jeans. Bear with me. Do you fit in each one of those jeans? Does one of them jump out at you straight away and you can see it fitting you? That is your starting point. If it doesn't, or we've seen people leave this call, which is fine throughout, they're self-selecting out, then I wouldn't put the energy in, just make a call. But do you fit a turning point pair of jeans? Don't remember that one, Richard. Don't remember that one.
I mean, I wasn't expecting a jeans-based analogy to
Well,
finish up with. I got one. And yeah, completely echo all of that. And I would just say finally, I'd reiterate the point that Rachel was making earlier around AI. Do be a bit careful with your use of AI. We do really want to see kind of the uniqueness of organisations coming through in their application forms. Completely fine to use it, as we all do to a certain extent in our work and in helping us to draft things, but don't be overly reliant on it. We do find with some of the questions in particular, and I'm thinking about, there's one in there around diversity and inclusion where we see a lot of responses that seem to be AI based. So be really sort of careful about the use of that and be honest in your application form. So we are a key thing of what we provide as an organisation is around development support, and we are looking to partner with organisations through this fund. We're not looking to sort of performance manage organisations or anything like that. We're looking to work in partnership, support you to develop over the years so that at the end of the 4 years of funding, you'll be in a better place than you were at the beginning of it. So yeah, do think about those development needs and be honest about where your strengths and your development needs are. Okay, all that remains to say then is a massive thank you to the team here, to Rachel, to Sarah, and to Peter for so expertly answering those questions. Fantastic job. Thank you very much. If anyone has a question which hasn't been answered in the chat or by the panel, please do feel free to email us with that question or book a call with a member of the team via our website. And another huge thank you. You can't see them on the screen, but there's loads of people who've been working behind the scenes, who've been fielding and responding to all of your questions that haven't come through to us on the panel. So a huge thank you to them and to our British Sign Language interpreters, John and David, and to our speech captionists, Natalie and Laura. And thank you to everyone out there for sticking with us, particularly the hardcore that have been with us right through to the end. I really hope you found it helpful. As I say, please do get in touch with us if you want to or need to. And as you leave the call, you'll see that there's a feedback form that will open in your browser. Please do complete this to let us know your thoughts on today's session. And other than that, have a fantastic afternoon.